Hey there, guitar fanatics. Welcome back or welcome to the channel, whichever the case may be. You know, one of the things I really see students struggle with when they're learning how to improvise and play solos is the ability to be musical and melodic. As guitarists, we seem to do a lot of practicing where we basically just run up and down scale or arpeggio patterns. And then when we go to play solos, we find ourselves being frustrated because what comes out sounds like scales and arpeggio patterns. I hear it all the time. I'm a huge believer in the concept that when you're in the heat of the battle, like being on stage at a jam night or you're trying to record a solo off the cuff, you're going to play like you practice. And if that's the case, you better be practicing in a way that you want to play. In this video, I'm going to give you an awesome practice strategy that's going to allow you to reliably and consistently come up with truckloads of great licks and phrases. But hey, before we get going, please remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and now let's play some guitar. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you probably realize that I love melodic rock players that can really rip when they want to. Two great players that fascinate me because they can really cut loose when the song requires it, but most of the time they're creating great parts and great melodies that really fit the song and say something, are Steve Lukather and Andy Timmons. It's no coincidence that Steve is a huge influence on Andy's playing. Steve, of course, is legendary as the studio hotshot for a couple of decades who could walk in off the street, take a quick look at a chart, sit down in the chair, and deliver on the first take a great guitar solo that was ready to put on the radio immediately. Andy Timmons is a guitarist. He's incredibly melodic. He has an amazing technique. He can play anything from legit jazz up to heavy metal. He's been successful as a sideman, but he's also revered with his own brand of instrumental rock. Both of these guys can improvise really well, and it's no coincidence that they have a lot of jazz study in their background. A couple of years ago, I started to notice a common theme in their solos, both on their studio recordings and when I would see them improvise live. A lot of the melodic lines that they play are triad based. All right, we're going to take a quick music theory detour. The major scale has 7 notes. Those notes are given a numerical identifier, 1 through 7. Let's take the C major scale, for instance. The 1 would be C, the 2 is D, the 3 is E, the 4 is F, the 5 is G, the 6th is A, the 7 is B, and we're back to our root an octave above where we started, the C note. We make chords by stacking every other note of a scale. That every other note relationship is called a third because if we go C, D, and E, there's 3 notes. So C and E are said to be a third apart. So if we stack, for instance, the first, the third, and fifth notes of the scale, that would be C, E, and G, we get what is called the C major triad. Now, it's called a major triad because the notes C and E are 2 whole steps or 4 frets apart. We refer to that as a major third interval. And that major third is the defining sound of that triad. If we go to the second note of the C major scale, that D, and we stack the notes D, F, and A, we get a D minor triad because the first third between D and F, it's only 3 frets apart or a step and a half. We call that a minor third, and that becomes the defining sound of the triad. Now we can make up more complex chords, but let's stop there. For the purpose of this lesson, we're going to work with major and minor triads. Major triads are made up of the root, a major third, and the fifth. A minor triad is made up of a root, a minor third, and a fifth. Those notes are called chord tones, and we can use these chord tones as a foundation, a base for our solos. All right, enough music theory nonsense, back to guitar playing. So we can use the notes of these triads as foundations for our solos. For instance, over a C major chord, you could play the C major triad. Over an E minor chord, you play E minor triad, etc. The problem with that is that it sounds really boring. Playing the exact same notes of the chord that you're soloing over as a solo introduces no tension to the music, no dissonance. Without tension and the resulting resolution, music has no excitement, no momentum. And that's a problem because I don't think any of us wants to sound boring or bland. So if you'll remember earlier, I mentioned that the melodic playing of Steve Lukather and Andy Timmons was largely triad based. The reason I say triad based is they don't just play triads because that would be boring, but they dress them up with one or two other notes from the scale that aren't in the triad. So when you hear Steve Lukather play something like, or you might hear Andy Timmons play something like, or even a line like, those lines are all based on triads. There's at least two notes of a triad in there with one, at the most two other non-triad notes added in to give the line some pizzazz. So right away, I started thinking about ways that my students could practice this concept and make it part of their guitar playing DNA. And I came up with a concept that's more of a game than something that feels like work. The idea is to simply come up with a short sequence of numbers that would correspond with the notes in a scale, and then to apply those numbers to each chord in a chord progression. Here are some rules that apply to our exercise. Your sequence can be as short as 3 notes, but it needs to contain 2 notes of a triad plus 1 non-chord tone. Let's say that we start off with the sequence 1, 2, 3. Well, you need to find the 1, 2, and 3 of each chord in the chord progression, and you need to play the notes in that order. First, you'd want to play them really straight just to get comfortable with finding those notes, and then as you get a comfort level, you want to add some phrasing and give some life to it. Put a limit on the number of different scale degrees that you play in a phrase. No more than 5 different scale degrees. Now, you may play more than 5 notes due to phrasing and variations that you do, but you're going to be playing only those 5 scale degrees. You might play some of them more than once. Now, I'm making a little bit of an assumption here that you know your triad shapes. Now, I did a video on those that you can find here. If you haven't gotten your triads down, I really recommend that you watch that video because they are an essential skill to improvising. But fear not, they're not necessary to get through this video and get something out of it because I'm going to guide you through the various positions that I'm playing. Okay, so let's get busy and give this a try. I've put together a little 4-chord backing track with a little twist at the end. The first 3 chords are in the key of C. We've got C major, we've got A minor, we've got F major, and then we're going to switch to the key of C minor. We're going to borrow the F minor chord from that key. I threw that in there to keep you on your toes, make you do a little something different. Let's start off super easy. We're going to use the number sequence 1, 2, and 3. We're going to find the 1, 2, 3 of each chord, starting with C major. I'm up at the 13th fret. I'm going to play all these notes on one string, the B string, and I'm going to play C, D, that's the 1, 2, 3 of my C chord. I'm going to drop down to the 10th fret. I'm going to play A, B at the 12th fret. We've got our C, which is the 1, 2, 3 of A minor, over our A minor chord. Over that F chord, we're going to drop down to the 6th fret. We're going to play frets 6, 8, and 10. So we've got an F note, which is the 1, G, which is the 2 of F, A, which is the major third. Then we switch to that F minor. So I've got, again, F at the 6th fret, G at the 8th fret, but then I've got A flat, which is the minor third of F, at the 9th fret. And I just think that's the coolest sound, going from major to minor of the same chord. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this sequence twice over the chord changes. First time through, I'm going to play it really straight, just to, again, kind of get comfortable with where the notes are. The second time through, I'm going to add some phrasing and try to make these notes come alive. Check it out. Okay, so with just 3 notes, we're making legitimate musical statements. We're nailing the notes of the chord changes, the sound of the chord changes, and the simplicity of what we're playing gives us the space and freedom to dress things up with good phrasing. Let's do another variation. We're just going to reverse the sequence and play 3, 2, 1. You guys already know the notes. Let's go. Let's switch things up a little bit. We're still going to keep it simple, but we're going to go to the notes 3, 4, and 5 of each of our chords. So for each chord, that would give us the following. Over our C chord, we're going to have E, F, and G. So I'm at the 17th, 18th, and 20th frets. Over our A minor chord, we're going to have the notes C, D, and E. That's at 13, 15, and 17. Over our F major chord, we're going to have the notes A, B, C. That's at frets 10, 12, and 13. Then over our F minor, we're going to have A flat, B flat, and C. Those are at frets 9, 11, and 13. So let's play it over the backing track. 1 time straight, 1 time with feeling. Let's go. Now that we're getting the hang of it, let's try one with a few more notes to it. Let's try the sequence 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 1, 5, where that last fifth is an octave below the note we started on. So over our C chord, we would have the notes G, F, E, C, D, C, and we're going to end up on the G note at the 12th fret of the G string. Kind of a cool pattern. Over our A minor chord, we would have E, D, C, A, B, back to A, and then E at the 9th fret of our G string. Over that F chord, F major, we've got C, B, A, F, G, F, C. I'm up at the 20th fret on the high E for the C, 19 for the B, 17 for the A. We've got the F at the 18th fret of the B string, the G at the 20th fret, and then we've got our C note down at the 17th fret of our G string. Over our F minor, we've got two notes that change, still starting up at the 20th fret, but now we're playing B flat and A flat, F, G, F, back to our C. And that ends our phrase. You know the drill. We're going to the backing track. I'm going to play it once straight over the chords, and then once with some phrasing and some feeling. Now I'm going to run through the changes a couple of times. I'm going to mix things up. I'm going to play different variations so that you can hear how using these triads plus one or two other non-chord tones allows you to craft the foundation for a really great solo. Here we go. Here are a couple of points that I really want you to hear and then put into action so that you get the most out of this video. Number one, learn at least your major and minor triads and all the inversions all over the neck in every key. Again, I made a video showing you how to do just that. Here's a link to it. Get these down because it gives you a roadmap for playing all over the neck. Number two, take the time to write out at least 10 combinations of two notes of a triad plus at least one other non-chord tone and apply these to major and minor chords in every key all over the neck. Number three, once you've practiced those combinations, play along with backing tracks. Put these things to use. Get used to playing them in time with the pressure of trying to keep up with a beat and chord changes. Number four, once you're comfortable with the notes themselves, really dig into the phrasing. Really mess around with your phrasing using different combinations of slides and bends and vibrato. You're going to find you can turn one small sequence of notes into multiple licks just by changing how you play those notes. I really mean it when I say I hope you got something out of this video that you can use to take your playing to another level. The concept of this video is pretty simple, but the application of that concept is profound because you can get so much mileage out of it. Take that ball and run with it. You keep practicing. I'm going to keep making these videos that are going to help you make sense of soloing. I'm out of here. See you soon.